The Vanishing Girl. My name is David, and I was only 15 when this happened. It was a summer night, and I was traveling with my cousin Michael and a group of relatives. We were on our way to visit some distant family members in a remote village. The journey felt endless, miles and miles of dark countryside, where the road seemed to vanish into the night. By the time the bus slowed down, it was already close to 11 o'clock p.m. The headlights cut through the heavy darkness, revealing a small roadside restaurant. The driver stopped the bus and announced in a rough voice, 15 minutes, eat something, use the washroom, and get back quickly. We won't wait longer. Everyone began climbing down one by one. Some went straight into the restaurant, others to the washroom. The place looked eerily quiet, too quiet for a restaurant that was supposedly open late at night. Only a dim, flickering bulb hung above the entrance, throwing shadows that seemed to move on their own. Michael and I finished our food within 5 minutes. Neither of us felt like staying inside. The atmosphere was suffocating, as though the walls themselves were watching. So we stepped outside while the rest of our family was still eating. The night air was heavy and strangely cold. There was no sound of crickets, no rustle of leaves, no barking dogs, just silence. The sky above was moonless, blanketed in thick clouds. The road ahead stretched into darkness, lined with tall trees swaying faintly in the wind. As we stood there, trying to shake off the uneasiness, we noticed something. Someone was already outside. It was a girl. She stood a little away from the restaurant, almost blending into the shadows. Her figure was slim, her clothes simple, and her face pale under the dim light. She seemed restless, her eyes darting around as if searching for someone. When she noticed us looking, she stepped closer. Her voice was soft, but carried a strange weight when she spoke. "Can you walk me home? I don't feel safe alone." Michael and I exchanged a quick glance. She looked like an ordinary village girl, but something about the way she appeared out of nowhere made my stomach twist. Still, she sounded afraid, and we were just two teenage boys who thought we were being kind. "Sure," I said, forcing a smile. "We're going in that direction, anyway." She nodded, almost without expression, and just like that, without another word, she turned and started walking. We followed. That was the beginning of a night I will never forget. The girl walked ahead of us, just a few steps in front, but there was something deeply unsettling about the way she moved. Her pace was steady, yet her footsteps made almost no sound, as if she was gliding rather than walking. Her figure seemed fragile, her white scarf flowing lightly in the night breeze. But there was a weight about her presence that made my skin crawl. Michael leaned close to me and whispered, his voice barely audible, "Something feels off about her, doesn't it?" I swallowed, my throat suddenly dry. "Maybe she's just scared. It's late, after all," I tried to reason. But even as I said it, the words felt hollow. There was nothing about her body language that suggested fear. Instead, it felt like we were the ones being led, not the ones helping. We caught up slightly, enough to see her more clearly under the faint orange glow of a distant street lamp. Her skin looked pale, almost too pale, and her eyes, large, unblinking, seemed fixed on some invisible point far ahead. She didn't once glance at us, not even to check if we were still following. Michael tried again to break the silence, his tone light, though I could hear the nervousness behind it. "Do you live around here? The road seems pretty empty." No response. The only sound was the rustle of leaves overhead and the faint whisper of the wind. The silence pressed down harder, thicker with each step we took. I had grown up visiting villages before, and nights in the countryside were never this quiet. Usually, there were distant voices, the occasional bark of a dog, or the glow of kerosene lamps and windows. But here, nothing. It was as if life itself had drained out of the place. Finally, I spoke up, trying to mask the unease in my voice. "Excuse me, how much farther is your house?" The girl stopped. For the first time, she turned her head toward us. Under the half shadow of the trees, her face looked distorted, almost hollow. Her lips trembled slightly, but her eyes, her cold, glassy eyes, seemed to pierce right through me. Then she screamed, "Just keep walking." The voice that burst out of her throat was not the voice of the timid girl we had met outside the restaurant. It was louder, sharper, filled with a fury that didn't belong to her. The sound echoed through the empty fields, bouncing back from the trees, until it felt like the night itself was screaming at us. My heart hammered in my chest. Michael grabbed my arm tightly, his face drained of color. That voice wasn't human. It was deep, guttural, and unnatural, like several people speaking at once. The girl didn't wait for our reaction. She simply turned back and started walking again. Her pace quicker, her movement stiff, and though every instinct inside me told me to turn around, to run back toward the faint safety of the restaurant lights, my legs refused to listen. It was as if some invisible force pulled us forward, keeping us chained to her steps. Michael whispered shakily, "David, I think we shouldn't have followed her," and though I wanted to agree, to run, to scream, I couldn't. All I could do was keep walking, my feet moving against my will, following the strange girl deeper into the darkness of the road. The road stretched endlessly before us, swallowed by the night. The deeper we walked, the heavier the silence grew. It wasn't the natural silence of the countryside, it was unnatural, suffocating, as though the very air had been drained of life. I tried to listen for anything, a dog barking in the distance, the chirp of crickets, even the rustle of leaves, but there was nothing. Just our own uneven breaths and the crunch of gravel under our feet. Even those sounds felt muted, like they were being swallowed by the darkness around us. The girl never turned back. Her figure was a shadow ahead of us, moving steadily, almost mechanically, along the narrow path. Sometimes the wind would catch her scarf, lifting it slightly, but even that seemed eerily slow, like time itself had thickened around her. Michael leaned toward me, his voice trembling. "This isn't right, David. We've been walking too long. Where are the houses? Where are the people?" I didn't answer. My throat felt tight, my chest heavy. Every step we took seemed to drag us farther away from the world we knew. And yet, somehow, it didn't feel like more than 10 minutes had passed. My mind kept telling me we were still close to the restaurant, but my legs told a different story. They were already beginning to ache, as though we had been walking for miles. Suddenly, the path narrowed into a dirt road. The trees leaned closer, their branches stretching above us like skeletal arms, blocking out what little light there was. Shadows moved strangely in the corner of my eyes, but whenever I turned, there was nothing there. "David," Michael whispered, his grip tightening on my arm. I don't think she's human." I wanted to tell him to stop, to not say such things aloud, but the words stuck in my throat. Deep down, was starting to believe the same. The girl slowed for a moment, then raised her hand without looking back. She pointed toward the dirt road ahead. Her movement was sharp, deliberate, like she had been expecting this exact moment. "You have to go this way now," she said, her voice calm again, but not in a reassuring way. It was calm the way a predator is calm when it knows its prey cannot escape. My skin prickled. My instinct screamed at me to stop, to turn around, to run. But the thought of running into that endless dark road behind us felt just as terrifying. Then, in the distance, a faint glow appeared. Headlights. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but no, it was real. Bright, familiar beams cutting through the shadows, growing stronger with every second. The bus. Our bus. Relief flooded through me like a wave. Michael let out a shaky laugh, almost a sob. "Thank God, it's the bus. We're saved." We turned back to look at the girl, to thank her, maybe, or to finally ask who she was. But she was gone. Vanished. One moment she was there, pointing toward the dirt road, and the next nothing. No footsteps, no shadow, not even the sound of retreating movement. She had simply dissolved into the darkness, as though she had never existed at all. The bus screeched to a halt in front of us, its headlights blinding as they cut through the suffocating darkness. The familiar sound of its engine was like music to my ears, loud, alive, real. After what felt like hours of walking through endless nothingness, it was the first sign that we weren't completely lost. Michael and I stumbled forward, waving frantically. The door opened with a hiss, and before we could climb inside, several of our relatives rushed down. Their faces were pale, their eyes wide with shock. "David, Michael, where on earth have you been?" one of my uncles cried, grabbing me by the shoulders. I blinked, still trying to process what had just happened. We were just walking with a girl. She asked us to help her get home. The words spilled out of me, but even as I spoke them, I realized how absurd they sounded. A girl in the middle of nowhere at midnight, leading us down a deserted dirt road. She said her house was nearby, Michael added, his voice shaky. We thought we were being kind. Our relatives exchanged worried glances, their expressions darkening. One of them muttered under his breath, "Not again." I frowned. "What do you mean, not again?" Before anyone could answer, the bus driver climbed down. His usually gruff face was twisted with something I had never seen before: fear. Real, bone-deep fear. He stared at us, then at the road behind, his eyes narrowing as though he expected to see someone standing there. But of course, there was no one, only darkness. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and grave. "Do you boys even realize how far you've come? From the restaurant to here, it's nearly 10 kilometers. Michael and I froze. 10 kilometers? That was impossible. We had only been walking for what felt like 10 minutes. My legs ached, yes, but it didn't feel like we had traveled that far. No, I said quickly, shaking my head. That can't be right. It hasn't even been that long. The driver's eyes narrowed further. Time doesn't move the same way on that road. Haven't you understood that yet? A chill spread down my spine. I wanted to argue, to insist that he was wrong, but deep inside, I knew he wasn't. The strange silence, the emptiness, the way the girl had vanished without a trace, it all pointed to something far beyond the natural. Michael glanced at me, his face pale, his lips trembling. He whispered, "David, where did she go? She was right here, just before the bus arrived." I turned back, scanning the dirt road. My heart skipped a beat. There was nothing. No figure, no sound, not even a shadow. She was gone, as if the night had swallowed her whole. One of my aunts grabbed my arm tightly, her nails digging into my skin. "You didn't touch her, did you? You didn't speak to her too much, did you?" I stammered. "No, we just followed her. That's all." The bus driver suddenly raised his voice, his fear breaking into anger. "Enough. Get inside, all of you. We need to leave this place now, before she comes back." His words hit me like ice. Before she comes back? What exactly had we been following? The bus door slammed shut behind us with a hiss, and the driver wasted no time. He shoved the gear into place and pressed down hard on the accelerator. The engine roared, and the bus lurched forward, faster than I had ever seen him drive before. Inside, the atmosphere was heavy, suffocating. Nobody spoke at first. My relatives sat stiff in their seats, their faces pale, their eyes darting nervously to the windows, as though expecting to see something or someone following us in the dark. Michael leaned close to me, whispering so quietly I'd barely hear him over the engine. "David, why are they all so scared? What's going on?" Before I could reply, the bus driver's voice cut through the silence. His tone was harsh, almost trembling with suppressed fear. "You two are lucky you're still breathing. Do you even know what you've done?" My stomach sank. "We just helped a girl. She said she was afraid." The driver slammed his fist against the steering wheel, the sound making everyone jump. "That wasn't a girl," he barked. "That was her." The way he said it sent a chill crawling down my spine. The bus grew quiet again, but this time, it was the kind of silence filled with unspoken knowledge. Everyone seemed to understand who he meant, except Michael and me. "Who?" Lil asked, his voice barely steady. "What do you mean?" The driver's eyes stayed locked on the road, but his voice dropped to a low, grim tone. "On this route, late at night, there's a spirit. She appears as a young girl, asking travelers to walk her home. Once you follow her, she leads you farther and farther away, until you reach the old house at the end of the dirt road. No one who enters ever comes back alive. The locals say it's cursed, a place of death." The words seemed unreal, like something out of a story told to scare children. But the weight in his voice, the way my relatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats, made it all too real. I shook my head, trying to make sense of it. But it felt like 10 minutes. How could we have walked 10 kilometers? The driver gave a bitter laugh, one that held no humor. "That's how she traps you. She bends time, makes you think you've only just begun walking. when in reality, she's been leading you for miles. By the time people realize it, it's already too late. Michael swallowed hard, his face drained of color. So where is she now? Why did she disappear when the bus came? The driver's hands tightened on the steering wheel, his knuckles white. He didn't look at us when he answered. She doesn't like witnesses. Spirits like her work in silence, unseen. If the bus hadn't arrived, you would have kept walking until. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. My imagination filled in the blanks. An old, crumbling house in the middle of nowhere, its walls hiding countless forgotten bodies, the air heavy with the stench of death. One of my aunts crossed herself and muttered a prayer under her breath. Another relative pulled me and Michael close, holding our hands tightly, as though afraid we might vanish at any moment. For the first time that night, I truly understood. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't a lost villager. We had come face to face with something ancient, something cursed, and it had chosen us. The bus raced down the empty road, its headlights cutting through the darkness like two trembling blades. Inside, the silence had grown unbearable, every creak of the bus making us flinch. Finally, the driver broke it. His voice was low, rough, as though dragging the words out of memories he wished he could forget. You boys don't understand what you nearly walked into. That house at the end of the dirt road, it isn't just old. It's cursed. People here, we call it the Shadow's House. The name alone sent a chill down my spine. Michael's eyes widened, but he stayed quiet, waiting for more. The driver continued, his gaze locked on the road. Long ago, a family lived there. The father, mother, and a little girl. They weren't rich, but they had land, crops, and peace. Until one night, thieves broke in. They killed the parents, robbed everything, and left the girl alive. Or so it seemed. But when villagers came days later, they found the girl dead, too hung by her own scarf, her face twisted in terror. Nobody knows if she did it herself, or if something else happened. Since then, no one has lived there, and no one dares to go near after dark. He paused, taking a shaky breath before continuing. Over the years, travelers on this road started telling the same story. A girl in white, asking for help to get home. People with kind hearts followed her. Some even laughed at the warnings, saying ghosts weren't real. But when the villagers searched for them later, they only found their belongings scattered near that house. The bodies, they say, were never whole, torn apart, vanished. The words clung to the air like poison. I could hear my relatives muttering prayers under their breath, some covering their faces with their hands. Michael shook his head, his voice trembling. But we saw her. She looked real. She spoke. She even got angry when we asked questions. How can that not be human? The driver glanced at him through the rearview mirror, his eyes tired, haunted. That's her curse. She wants you to believe. She looks real. She sounds real. It's too late. Once you've walked too far, you'll never see the world again. Only her house. Only her shadow. The bus jolted as he swerved sharply, avoiding a fallen tree branch. My heart leapt into my throat, but his hands were steady on the wheel. His voice, however, was unsteady now, as though he hated every word he had to speak. I've driven this route for 20 years. I've seen men, women, even children vanish because of her. And every time, every single time, it's the same place. That house. That cursed house. For a moment, I thought the bus grew colder. I pulled my jacket tighter, glancing at Michael, who was pale as chalk. Neither of us spoke. The driver let out a long sigh, then whispered almost to himself, "You two should thank your God tonight. If this bus hadn't arrived when it did, you'd be gone. You'd be part of the Shadow story now." No one answered him. No one dared to. The only sound left was the engine roaring into the night, and the whispers of fear we carried inside us. The bus finally slowed as it approached the small town, its familiar streetlights cutting through the night like a promise of safety. My legs were numb from the long walk, my heart still hammering in my chest. Michael sat silently beside me, staring out the window as if expecting the girl or her shadow to appear in every corner. When we reached our relatives' homes, everyone quickly climbed down, their faces pale and shaken. I thought the nightmare was over, that the cursed girl had vanished forever into the darkness. But even as we said our goodbyes and returned to our rooms, the fear didn't leave. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still watching, still waiting. The image of her pale face, her glassy eyes, and the sudden scream echoed in my mind. Michael shivered, whispering, "David, do you think she's still out there?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to convince myself it was over. But deep down, I knew better. Some things don't simply vanish. Some shadows linger. That night, when I closed my eyes, I could still hear the faint whisper in my ears. Just keep walking. It was impossible to forget the way she had led us down the silent dirt road, the unnatural stretch of the path, the way time itself had seemed twisted. Every creak of a door, every rustle outside, made me flinch, expecting her to appear. Days passed, yet the fear stayed. Michael wouldn't talk about it much, but I knew he felt it to the sense that some curse had touched us, that some presence had marked us, and that the shadow of death could still be lurking, waiting for another chance. Even now, whenever I travel at night, or see a lonely girl on a quiet road, my heart races, and I remember that cursed night. Because some stories never end, some shadows never leave, and some spirits never forgive. And that is why I know, with every fiber of my being, that the curse never truly ends. Did you enjoy the story? Let us know in the comments. And if you liked it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to The Horror Dream. Want more stories like this? Subscribe to The Horror Dream, and we'll bring you more darkness, just for you. If you enjoy a little chill down your spine, stick around, like, share, and hit that subscribe button, right here on The Horror Dream. Your support keeps us going, so stay with us. Subscribe to The Horror Dream for more spine-tingling tales.